The EURUSD is up big today, but is this a liquidity sweep or is the bottom in for the euro? That's what we're talking about in today's video. We're also going to take a look at the DXY, the US dollar index, and I'll show you the latest there in terms of whether or not we could get the push into 110 to 111. So looking at the EURUSD, guys, 2025 is kicking off with a lot of volatility here. Look, sometimes you get years that start off pretty slow. Sometimes you get years that start off very volatile. And this is obviously the latter. And you can see where the EURUSD did break below 1.035. We've talked about this before, but this was the key level going into the end of 2024. And this was also my end of year target that we saw tested back here in November. What I mentioned throughout December was the fact that we did have some imbalances down here for the EURUSD, including this area around 1.02. And we did see that tested. And another thing that I was talking about in December was when the market was just holding above 103.50 like this, we did see this downtrend here. We also had these lower highs into support, and that did hint at a move lower to start 2025, which we did see on the very first day of 2025. Now, the big question that everybody's asking themselves is this move so far this week, here on Monday, is this indicative of a bottom for the EURUSD? And the only way that this is going to become a bottom, and first of all, let's talk about why this is occurring even. I'm not a fundamental trader, but this move right here was caused by the US dollar selling off because there was a report that came out from the Washington Post stating that Trump was backing off on his tariffs, or at least would be backing off on his tariffs once he is officially the president of the US once again. And Trump came out hours later and said, that's not true, it's wrong, right? So that's why you're seeing all this volatility here today. So we saw the EURUSD spike above 103.50. And if you look at something like the hourly, you can see how volatile this got. So this is essentially where that report came out from Washington Post. And this right here is where Trump came out and said that's wrong. So we're just kind of waiting now. We're waiting to see, where this market goes in terms of the daily and even weekly close with regard to 103.50, because this is what it's going to come down to, guys. It's as simple as this. You've got these lows back here. This is our key level. You have the EURUSD bouncing from support down here at 102. So the question now is, can the market recover this area around 103.50 on the high time frames? And by high time frames, what we're talking about here is the daily time frame, obviously, but also you've got to consider the weekly time frame as well. Because what happens here a lot of times is you will get the daily closing above here, ranging for a bit, and then this week closes back below 1.035. Because keep in mind, if you look here at the weekly, right, this was lost last week, right? So the market clearly closed below this key area last week. And so far, we're just seeing the EURUSD range between these two levels. And obviously we have, over 4 days left in this week. So it's really going to come down to, can the EURUSD close up here and especially above this area? If we get a weekly close up here, then I think the bottom is in for the euro. If the weekly low closes back down here in this area, then 1.035 is still resistance, and we're looking at that move down toward levels like 102 and potentially even 1.009 and even parity. All right, so I still think though, guys, the likely scenario here, I could be wrong, but the likely scenario I still think is the EURUSD trending lower down here towards some of these key levels. And that goes back to things like this here on the monthly time frame, which, look, we talked about this before. Right, there were two targets on this push lower. You can see this wick right back here and also this one, right? Now parity is just below that, but essentially this was the first target following the move below 103.50, and the second target is down here. Now, whether or not we get these lower levels, like I said, is unclear. I personally think that we are likely to get this before we see a bottom, in place for the EURUSD sometime in Q1. But at the end of the day, guys, the markets always have the last word. So what I think doesn't really matter a ton. It just comes down to where the high time frames are closing here with regard to this chart. All right, so let's take a look here at the DXY, guys. And by the way, if you do want to join us in VIP, guys, check out the link in the description of this video for 85% off lifetime access. We do discuss these markets in real time. So I'm talking about these markets all day long, sharing my trades, and also VIP videos that you can only get in our Discord server. So looking here at the DXY, the US dollar index, guys, 108, we've talked about this before, but you can see here on the weekly, this was and still is a critical level here for the DXY. You can see back here, support through here, resistance, and resistance again. We got the breakout. So far, this is now support for the DXY. Now, as I mentioned last week, including in the weekly forecast, What we were talking about there was the significance of this level at 109.50. Okay, so 109.5. And this was that imbalance that we have discussed for months that could serve as a magnet, right? We were talking about this back here when the market reclaimed this area down here around 102.60. The fact that this area right around 109 to 110 was an imbalance for the DXY. And sure enough, it did serve as a magnet. In fact, this high right here was 109.53 exactly. So this was significant. And this is what I said last week. Don't, dismiss the significance of this retest right here, and that we would likely see the DXY pull back into this area, right? So, so far, guys, it's been pretty spot on with what I thought we might see. The question, though, that we have to ask ourselves is this going to be enough for a top, or are we likely to see the DXY test the top of this channel, right? So you can see that back here, we did get a failed breakdown from the DXY. This is where I was getting bullish at 102.60 once again on the break of this trend line. And so the question now is, do we get the test of the opposite side of this pattern following this failed breakdown? So that would include a move up here toward the top of this channel, closer to 110.50 to 111, which could of course equal the EURUSD down there toward parity, right? So that's the big question right now that we have to ask ourselves. And we don't know if this is going to occur yet. We don't know where any market's going to go technically, right? Nobody does. But what we can say about this is that when we look at the daily, the only way that the DXY turns bearish, all right, and I want to be very clear about this. The only way this market turns bearish is if it loses this area through here, this pocket. Okay, all of these highs back here and these lows, if we were to see it trading back down here in this area, then in my opinion, that would start to look bearish for this market. But a mere retest of support like this that we're seeing today, guys, this is not enough to call this a top. And this is the problem. This is where a lot of traders go wrong, is they see this kind of move right here. Okay, and they think, oh man, this is the top. Look how aggressive this move is. And they start looking for shorts up here, but they're shorting right into this pocket of support. You've also got trend lines like this down here. It's not the strongest trend line out there, but you can see that it does come in, through this area as well, right? So there's a lot going on here between really 107.50 to 108 that could serve as support here for the DXY. And that's exactly where we're seeing the market bounce today as well. You can see here on the 4-hour time frame where we are getting a pretty decent bounce from this area, right? So again, guys, I don't think that this is where you want to be shorting the US dollar. If anything, you're looking for a potential buy here. But again, the only way that this becomes a buy is if the EURUSD on the daily time frame closes below 1.035. If it doesn't, if the EURUSD closes back up here in this range, then this is your range for the week, with resistance coming in up here and support coming in down there around 103.50. Okay, so there are several factors to weigh here with regard to these markets, guys. But again, I don't think that this is enough here to call this a top for the DXY. So far we still have an uptrend. We have the market holding above support up here. Again, the only way this turns bearish is if we get a close below this area through here. If we see it, breaking down below here, then that would be a top for the DXY. But until that time, and I could be wrong with this, guys, but I do still think that we could get that push up here toward the top of this channel toward 110.50 to 111, and potentially for the EURUSD, seeing that move down there toward 1.009, potentially down there toward parity. And again, it all goes back to the high time frames like the monthly, where if you look here, we've got this imbalance, right, that pushes all the way down here toward 1.009. So we've seen the first target hit right here. Okay, so first target hit, and this would be the second target. And then of course you've got parity as well, guys, which tends to serve as a magnet the closer a market gets to it. Now, the other thing I want to talk about here before we wrap up, guys, is you can see right now, this candle looks relatively bullish. However, keep in mind, this is the monthly. There are 25 days left. Okay, 25 days left. This could change today, right? Much less 25 days from now. So just keep that in mind. Yes, we are seeing the bounce here, but the big question is, as the title of this video and post goes, right, is this a liquidity sweep or is the bottom in? And right now, the only thing we have here is a liquidity sweep, right? We've seen volatility with the market coming up here, sweeping any late shorts up here, but we don't get half confirmation of a bottom. The only way that's going to occur is if the EURUSD is trading up here on a daily and even weekly closing basis. Until that time, guys, I'm going to look to see where today closes here the next 5.5 hours or so. If it closes below 1.035, this remains intact as resistance. with eyes on 1.02, potentially 1.009. But again, if we close above 1.035, then we're looking at a range here with resistance coming in up here around 1.045. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell for notifications. Don't forget too, guys, to join us in VIP. Claim your 85% off lifetime access. See the link in the description of this video, or if you're on the website, click on that join VIP link. Trade well out there, and I will talk to you again soon.